JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is a series known for its blood, violence, and fights. Early in the series, it wouldn't be uncommon to see a character lose more than enough blood to die from blood loss, but then just be perfectly fine in the next episode or chapter. I guess people began to question how much damage these characters can really take, and I myself felt that at times it took away from the story when a serious wound in one fight would just be completely healed or gone in the next, when no real healing took place, or we're just left to assume that it happened off screen. JoJo isn't exactly a realistic series, but I mean, your characters can't just be invincible and heal themselves overnight, so for one reason or the other, Hirohiko Araki introduced stands with healing abilities. The first and most obvious healing stand was of course Josuke's Crazy Diamond. In all honesty though, Araki probably made healers just so he could do even more fucked up things to his characters and pull on the reader's heartstrings, by making it seem like a character's dead but then just having Josuke revive them. But they are a much welcomed addition to the variety of stand powers and keep them just as bizarre, as no stand that is classified as a healer has an ability as simple as just healing. It's always something that achieves the effect, but in an obscure way. Just looking at Crazy Diamond, yes it can heal people, but its actual ability is restoration, reconstructing something or returning something to its previous state. So today we are going to be looking at the most prominent healers in JoJo and decide which is the best. Similar to an episode of Standoff, but on a much larger scale featuring more than just two characters. Although there are a lot of stands that can heal to some extent if you really stretch it, like D4C, Sticky Finger, Stone Free, and even more, but today we are going to be focusing on the stands whose main ability revolves around healing and are considered the healers of their part. Josuke with Crazy Diamond, Giorno with Gold Experience, Foo Fighters with, well, itself, and Hot Pants with Cream Starter. Like I mentioned, there are other healing abilities in JoJo, even some that aren't even stands like Zombie Horse, but the characters and stands I just mentioned are what I consider the best healers in the series, and the ones who will be having their abilities go head to head to decide who is the best healer in JoJo. So let's start with none other than the original healer, Crazy Diamond. Part 4 was the first time that we had a true healing ability in the series other than Hamon, and especially having it be the stand used by our main JoJo. And having a character that can heal pretty much anything was definitely an interesting aspect that changed things up quite a bit from Part 3. Because with Josuke around, whatever happens to any character from now on, we always have it in our mind that they can just be healed, and I think that made a lot of situations lose their sense of fear and danger that existed in Part 3. But healers are definitely important in battle mangas. There's a reason why almost every long-running series has at least one healer with some sort of healing ability, and since Part 4, there has been at least one character that plays the healer role in every single part of JoJo since then, well, except for Part 8 as of right now. So back to the healers that we'll be focusing on today. We should all be pretty familiar with Crazy Diamond's ability now, considering that we've covered it many times on this channel in all sorts of different videos. So let's just focus on the stand's limitations and what it can't do, rather than what it can do. So in order for Crazy Diamond to heal or restore something, well of course it needs to be broken. But other than that, the stand is pretty limitless. Really the only other thing that would nullify the stand's healing ability is of course if part or pieces of what it's trying to restore don't exist anymore. Like if something was erased by the stand the hand, or if the time was taken to ensure that every last particle of the missing piece was destroyed by either burning it or some way or some sort of chemical process to make sure that the part is just completely gone out of existence. But of course, that would take some time. And as we all know, Josuke cannot use his Crazy Diamond ability on himself. He can only heal and restore other objects, which is what I would say is the stand's biggest limitation. I mean, what's a healer if they can't heal themselves? And lastly, the stand cannot bring people back to life after they have already passed on, because apparently the only stand that can do that is Star Platinum. It's interesting to think about what Crazy Diamond's actual limits are to its restoration ability, especially its range. As we've seen, the missing or broken parts of a person or object will be dragged to where it originally came from and in turn restoring it. So what if Crazy Diamond punched Joseph's arm in the spot where he lost his hand? Would that mean Joseph's hand attached to Cars would be drawn back to Earth in order to restore the hand and bringing Cars back to Earth? Who knows, because the stand has a D in range, but that of course is only for its physical attacks, so really, What are the stand's limitations? Well anyways, moving on to the next healer, and that is Giorno's Gold Experience. I know we have already compared Crazy Diamond and Gold Experience before in an episode of Standoff, so referring back to that video, the way Giorno heals differently than Crazy Diamond is that rather than restoring something using all of the original pieces, Giorno creates new parts and pieces to heal people. For example, someone gets their hand blown off into 1,000,000 pieces. Crazy Diamond would be able to bring all of the pieces back to their original state, thus restoring the hand, when Gold Experience would heal the person and their hand by giving life to an inanimate object around the same size as the person's hand, like a rock for example, and then he would be able to attach the newly created hand that he gave life to without using any of the original pieces. Granted, this process is fairly slow and is also painful, but it still works. And although Gold Experience's process of healing isn't as practical or seamless as Crazy Diamond's, it has much less limitations. Something I've always wondered about Gold Experience is that if its newly created body parts are exact replicas of the originals, so yeah, it can make a new hand out of any object and attach it, but is it really the same exact hand? I feel like that would only be the case if Giorno had prior knowledge of what the hand looked like and felt like in order to create an exact replica. And if we really want to question this stand's capabilities, how about the question, can Gold Experience create people? I mean, the stand has created all different types of animals, all being unique organisms, extremely easily, and we have seen the stand create different body parts like organs, limbs, and even parts of a person's head and face. So really, if Gold Experience used its Life Giver ability on an object about the size of an average person, with the intent to give it life in the form of a human, what's limiting the stand from doing it? I mean, it might take a lot more time, but it still might be possible. But anyways, back to some things that we know Gold Experience can do. It's able to use its ability on its user, replacing their own body parts and heal their own body, which is where I believe the reasoning for Gold Experience having less limitations than Crazy Diamond comes in. Now moving on to the healer in Stone Ocean, Foo Fighters. Although FF isn't the only healer in Part 6, because Jolene sometimes uses her Stone Freeze strain ability to quickly sew up her own wounds, but for the most part, I think Foo Fighters is who I would consider to be the main healer from the part. So Foo Fighters is interesting to say the least. I mean, it or she, whatever you want to consider it, or her, is just pretty much plankton that happened to come in contact with a disc that Poochie threw into the ocean. One thing led to another, and we got FF, one of the best girls from Part 6. Araki said that Foo Fighters is actually more similar to a new species rather than a stand, which I guess I can see because is Foo Fighters the stand or the stand user? They're just kind of one thing. What's the deal with Foo Fighters, really? So Foo Fighters has quite a few different abilities that comes along with her being evolved plankton, and one of them is her healing capabilities. The way she heals is pretty simple, and I guess what you would expect from evolved plankton. So she heals people's wounds by filling them with plankton, and I guess this just grows and attaches to the body, speeding up the natural healing process. It's actually pretty effective, as FF is able to heal fatal wounds extremely easily, although I'm not sure if the stand would actually be able to cure complex organic damage like some of the other healers. So comparing it to Gold Experience's ability, instead of creating exactly new pieces of the body that can just fit right into place, Foo Fighters fills up the body with sort of a substance that enables the body to grow itself, and use the substance that FF has provided to sew the body together and sort of accelerate the natural healing process. Water is also a pretty big factor to take into consideration when talking about Foo Fighters, as she needs water constantly in order to live, so no water, no FF. Which really sucks, limiting Foo Fighters' capabilities and really making her more situational. Sort of similar to Catch the Rainbow, but not exactly, as just straight up water is a lot more common than rainfall, but that's still a limitation that she has, and we've seen it affect her many times in Part 6, where she gets put in a situation where she's about to die if she doesn't get water, or she's just kind of useless because she can't use any of her abilities. But now moving on to the last healer on our list, and it is none other than Steel Ball Run's Hot Pants.
Hot pants! Hey, hot pants! Hot pants! Smoking!
And it's no surprise if you know what her stand does that it's not really anywhere close to the healing capabilities of the aforementioned stands. Although her stand Cream Starter was one of my favorites in Steel Ball Run, and I still think it has a really damn cool ability that still makes her a great healer. So Cream Starter is a stand that appears as a spray can and can shoot out human flesh in the form of a foam substance and will attach and mold to whatever it makes contact with. The stand does have other uses for this ability, like using it for combat and disguises, but when it comes to just its healing ability, as it implies, it's really only useful for flesh wounds. And it also has some weird inconsistent rules, like it can only use Hot Pants' flesh, so if she wanted to add flesh to something, she would have to remove some flesh from her body, or she can use the flesh of anyone she's in contact with, but I plan on doing an entire video talking about what's the deal with Cream Starter, so for now, let's not dive into all the specific cases we've seen the stand used. But from what you can just tell from its ability, yeah, Cream Starter is not as good as the other healers, but it's just as cool, honestly, and I can say it can be way more useful than the others in plenty of other situations. But this video is to find out who is the best healer in JoJo, and from the Twitter poll I ran the other day, I can definitely tell you guys don't think it's Hot Pants or Foo Fighters. Shameless plug, follow me on Twitter for random updates like this, or if you guys just want to put your input on future videos I'm working on. I'm always on Twitter. Link to my Twitter account is always in the description. But when it comes to the best healer in JoJo with the least amount of limitations and overall best healing ability, I'd have to go with Gold Experience, the stand with the ability of giving life. But Crazy Diamond, Foo Fighters, and Hot Pants are all great healers that played their role just fine in their respective parts, although sometimes in Steel Ball Run, Hot Pants' presence was just a bit too convenient. And based on the Twitter poll, it seems most of you guys think Crazy Diamond was the best healer in JoJo. That could be because Crazy Diamond's just really the first stand that comes to mind when you think of healer, and also we can't forget that there's anime-only watchers out there who don't even know who Gold Experience, Hot Pants, or Foo Fighters even are yet. So naturally, they just pick the one they know. But I will say that about 90% of the time, Crazy Diamond would be more useful than Gold Experience, but it's just those times where the original parts of the pieces are just gone, and you don't have the original pieces to restore, and what would Crazy Diamond do then? And also the fact that Giorno can use it on himself. That's really the thing that pulls him ahead for me. So I'd have to say the best healer in JoJo is Giorno with Gold Experience. If you guys have any different opinions on who you think is the best healer in JoJo, leave a comment down below and explain why. But other than that, like the video if you enjoyed, or if I fought your boredom, and subscribe for more videos.